Hello everyone, welcome back. If you're new to my channel, my name is Bella and I love all things design and DIY. So today, falling under that category, I want to talk about some sewing inspiration that I've been saving lately. It's midwinter, things are dark and dreary and boring, and I'm just excited for spring. I usually don't feel super inspired to sew during the winter because I'm just so cold all the time. I don't really have a lot of ideas for pieces that I want to make most of the time. In the winter, I'm just basically wearing sweats if I'm at home and bundling up as much as I can when I go out. So I am seriously looking forward to the months ahead so that I can start feeling a little bit more inspired with my sewing. But today, to hold us all over, I thought I would do a sewing inspo video. These pieces, I will warn you, they're not super wintry. They're not things that are going to keep you warm, but they're just pieces that, you know, if you're looking for some ideas, some fun little details to add to your projects coming up. I've been so unmotivated to sew lately, so I'm hoping that this also brings me some inspiration. So let's get started. I want to mention that everything that I have sourced for this video has come from Pinterest, and finding the original source of images on Pinterest can sometimes be a little bit difficult. However, if you, for whatever reason, want to track down the original source, I'm going to post screenshots of each garment and how I originally found them, so it'll just be the full screenshot of Pinterest. This is just purely for inspiration if you want to take little pieces and just kind of try out different sewing skills from these pieces in your own projects. I'm not encouraging you to just like copy them verbatim, but that's none of my business. Or if you want to see where something's from, if you want to buy something, I will show you exactly how I found them. This first look is these really fun pants. I've been seeing this pair of pants all over my Pinterest recently, and I know it's something so simple, but I don't really play with this kind of like mixing of two contrasting materials very often, if ever. So I thought this was a really nice idea to save for future reference. When just making a basic pair of pants, why not just make the other side in a different fabric? This is also really great if you're running low on fabric. This happens to me all the time. I'm horrible at estimating how much fabric I'm going to need for a project, and I don't map out my patterns as well as I could. So something like this seems like something that I would do just because I had to, not because I planned it, but you know, it would be nice to plan something like this. I think these pants are fun. It's just a little twist. I really like how this is the same stripe pattern and same colorway, but just in a smaller print on one side. But this could also be really fun if you did two completely clashing prints or two complementary colors, two shades of the same color. The options are really endless, and of course these are really like chill, almost look like pajama pants, but they really don't have to be. You can apply this concept to literally anything when it comes to sewing. Opposite sleeves, opposite legs, whatever you want really. So love that idea. This is a Jacquemus top. I never know if I'm saying that right, so French people, pardon my Jacquemus pronunciation. This top just looks like it would be so flattering, don't you think? The way that the bust is cut, I absolutely love when garments that are made out of like a knit like this looks like it is, and so they're a little bit stretchy, but there's still a point made to keep structure within the top, so like cutting out this bust area. And I especially love the use of different sizes of ribbing throughout the top to create contrast, but also using a smaller rib on the bust, I'm assuming, would give you a little bit more support. And then I also like that it has this tie detail that comes up to almost look like you have like a bikini top underneath. I think it's really cute. And also, if you are a small busted person and you've gotten into sewing and you're used to sewing and making proportions on your own body, and you're wanting to enhance your bust a little bit, you can probably tell, just like I can by looking at this shirt, that this would be very flattering. Not that we need to give the illusion of bigger busts, but if that's what you're looking for, all of the lines in this, the different uses of ribbing sizes, and the halter tie-up will help you achieve that look. That's the biggest tip I have for small busted people. If you're looking for just a little bit of something there, use a halter or a crisscross kind of detail on the back that's gonna really help to like pull your bust up and in. Okay, working on the absolute opposite effect for the bust. I love this dress though. This is just so gorgeous. I think this is absolutely what I want to emulate in my like brain of my perfect summer style. I know I said this was winter sewing inspo. See, it's not really, it's just like, let's fantasize about being able to wear these things for those of us who live in the northern hemisphere. I actually did make a dress kind of similar to this. If you go back on my TikTok, which I always have linked down below, I think the original dress I saw was by Dolce & Gabbana, and it wasn't exactly like this, but in more so like tapered up like this, and then I sort of just continued the pattern to go up, around, and behind my neck to create this like choker effect. I still am like not really too happy with the way that it ended up going, and I think maybe something like this that actually has two separate pieces in the bust pattern would work a lot better. It's really hard to make something like this with any amount of support, so of course keep that in mind, but I might attempt this again because I really like the look of this one a little bit better. I don't have a lot more to say about this as to how you could construct it, because it's one of those pieces that like I think it looks a lot easier than it actually is. How do you just keep them from falling out is what I'm wondering. So I don't know if anyone has any tips on how I could construct something like this. Let me know down below. I love this look. I'm not sure if this is two separate pieces or if it's one full dress, but I just really like this. It could also just be the lighting in the photo, but it looks like that little piece that's like laid under the bust there where the straps connect to. It looks like that's pale pink and the rest is in cream, and I really love that it just has like this very subtle amount of contrast between the shades. This also looks like, and if it isn't, it probably could be done in just a white cotton material. I'm not exactly sure what this one's actually made of, but I know you could get the same effect using cotton. And if you watch my previous video about my DIY goals, one thing that I talked about is how I want to start working with more natural fibers this year and focusing on kind of transitioning my wardrobe into working with more natural fibers, whether that's thrifting them or making pieces. And one thing that I find really difficult with natural is that cotton, for example, doesn't necessarily come in too interesting maybe of a range, and I find it's hard for me personally to imagine, like, especially a stiff cotton. I just thrift like cotton sheeting a lot, something like that. It's really hard for me not to imagine that kind of fabric in like either a really boxy or really romantic, lots of pleats and ruffles and things like that, like more of like a cottage core kind of way. And neither of those styles are really entirely me. When I'm putting an outfit together, I really like to have a certain amount of contrast. So if I have a really boxy or wide leg pant, I like to pair that with a really form-fitting top similar to something I have on now, and vice versa. And when it comes to dresses, I'm not the biggest fan of like just flowy fabric everywhere. I love that look on other people, but it's just not something that I gravitate towards. And so that's a very long-winded way for me to say that I love this dress and the idea of taking some sheeting cotton that I find at the thrift store and upcycling it into something like this, and kind of just playing with a little bit more like form-fitted to your body structure with cotton. I think something like this with the amount of pleats and kind of linearness in it would be really, really cute in like a very dainty floral print. And another thing, this is basically like all of my sewing inspo videos are just like small bust sewing inspo, but this also, if you want to accentuate your bust area, I really like how they have a like inner layer sort of for your bust, but then the outer shell of the dress kind of tapers out and sits a little bit away from that layer, so it's gonna give you more of like this illusion. That's what you're looking for. Love it. I love bows. If you have watched any of my videos in the past, you've probably heard me mention that at some point. I just love a bow, and so I am obsessed with this corset. I also really love the nylons that are paired with this that have the bows going on those as well. I would love to be able to make something like this, but I just don't know if I can, at least from an existing pair of nylons. I know I don't think I can do that, but I really would love to try making a pair of pants like this, because how gorgeous would that be if you had them like bows down the thigh just like this, and then kind of below the knee had the last bow, and then flared the fabric out. That's I think my dream pair of pants. I need to make that soon. And then of course a matching bow corset to go with that is just like an absolute no-brainer. I really like this. I love everything about it, and I'm jealous of this girl. Okay, this is a great thing to bring up for winter. I love these little like shrug sort of sleeve pieces. I've made them in the past where I just do sleeves and connect them via the back of the piece, but I really like this way of actually adding a neck hole into it. I know it's nothing like revolutionary, we see these all the time, and I don't know if they're like a trend piece that are already out. I have no idea, but I think it's a smart project for winter just to have these as layering pieces. They're super easy to make. Literally all you need to do is get like a long sleeve form-fitted pattern and just cut it off here. Again, similar to the first pair of pants we looked at, a great project if you don't have a lot of fabric to work with. I always find in the winter, tops are like the hardest thing for me to figure out, especially if I'm going out somewhere and I want to wear something a little bit interesting, but I don't want to be freezing. I have so many tank tops and strapless tops and things like that that I can wear perfectly the rest of the year. Winter, it also just feels a little bit weird to me to be wearing sleeveless tops. I don't know, because like not a lot of people do. It just makes me feel a little bit out of place. And so I think that making a sleeve piece in like a complementary color or pattern, tone, whatever, is a great idea, so that you can get the most use out of those sleeveless tops the whole year round. And it's just interesting looking. Now, this piece for where I personally live is not practical for this time of year, but I just wanted to mention it anyways because I really love the use of fabric and asymmetry here. I think that this kind of gathered detail that's off to one side is a really great sort of feature that you could add into literally any piece, so it doesn't have to just be like a sundress like this. I think this would actually be a really fun element to bring into a more like tailored look. There's this outfit that Michelle Obama wore recently, and I believe she was in some sort of like pantsuit or something. I'll try and find the picture and insert it. Something like that is sort of what I'm imagining for this detail, how there's this really big long flowing piece of fabric that gives a more structured look, a lot more movement and interest. That's just a simple detail. I really love it. I love a lot of fabric, but as I said before, I just don't love that look so much on me. So I think a nice accent of a really concentrated gather of fabric is a really nice element that you can play with. Because as I've said, I'm not super inspired to make clothing at this time of year, I think that winter is a great time if you're looking for some new sewing projects to try out sewing some accessories. I absolutely love this bag, and I think that something along the lines of this would be so easy if you haven't sewn bags before. Something like this could be a really great thing to start out with because all of these pieces lay completely flat, basically, except for the pockets, which pop out a little bit, but you could also just make those completely flat to it if you're a total beginner at sewing bags. I haven't sewn that many, but it's definitely something that I really want to work on in the future, especially working with like leather scraps and remnants. That just sounds like the perfect way to upcycle leather goods that are kind of deteriorating. For example, if you had a leather jacket that had a bunch of holes and rips in it because you've just worn it so much, or if you find something like that at a thrift store, this is a great way that you can upcycle that piece and give it a new life. I will say leatherworking has its own completely different set of tools and things like that, but it's definitely one of my goals in the future is to get more familiar with that material so that I can just broaden my upcycling brain. This piece I really like. It's something super simple. I've probably mentioned pieces like this before on here in one of my sewing inspo videos, but I just really love pieces that layer up the same fabric. I think it's something that instantly makes your clothing look more high quality, because at the end of the day it is just using more fabric. So a lot of times pieces like this that have extra panels, extra finishes, linings, things like that, they do up the price. Oh, I actually don't know, just looking at this after saying all that, I don't actually know if this is a separate panel on top of the bust or if it's actually just a finish that goes along the bottom of the bust, but imagine that this is a panel because that's kind of where my ideas are jumping off from. I love these subtle details in clothing that are all in the same fabric that just add more texture to a piece, more detail. Like I said, they make them look higher quality, and there's just so many ways that you can take, especially if you have like scrap fabric from a project, add some more pockets on there, add panels, add trims. Being able to sew and pay that extra bit of attention to detail with your clothing in a way that you could never buy for the same price that you're paying for fabric and your effort to make something is just like irreplaceable. It's such a great skill to have, especially if you're interested in fashion. I just am obsessed. See, I love these videos because they always get me out of a sewing rut. This is usually what I do when I'm feeling so uninspired and I have no ideas. I just go on Pinterest and force myself to film one of these, and already I have so many ideas for future projects. I love this whole look, but specifically, again, this sleeve piece. This is kind of another jump off point from the previous sleeve piece we talked about in this video. This one is off shoulder and asymmetric, which I love both of those details. Something so simple. This is even in a neutral color. It's not really like jumping out at you too much, but just the fact that it's sitting off the shoulder and off center is making it very interesting to look at. And then I love the idea of being able to mix and match the pieces that you wear underneath a piece like this. I think that your options are really endless, and again, I love a concept like this for the winter time, just to have something a little bit more interesting going on that's not going to make you completely freezing. Well, you'll be freezing on one side, but that's at least half. And then this look is the last one that I want to talk about. I love this top, the top of the top. It looks kind of deconstructed because of the buttons. It makes it look like the neck piece is just kind of like hanging off the top, and it wasn't actually meant to serve that function, but it becomes functional because it turns into the straps of the shirt. I really like this concept. There are so many ways that you can take this, and I think that this kind of shape of top and having something just securing a tiny little bit of the straps to make it look like it's just like hanging off and almost like falling apart, honestly. I think this would be really fun in like a silk or chiffon, even flaring out into a dress or something, and then having like the tiniest of tiny little strings attaching the top to the straps, and then having the option to tie up as many as you want or leave as many as you want undone. I really like that option for like versatility. That's another amazing thing about sewing, is if you really put some forethought into what you're making. Forethought, that's before, right? Yeah. Then you can really get away with making pieces that are so versatile and that can have different functions even, just with a little tweaking and adjusting, which again is something that you don't necessarily see in stores very often, because why would they want to sell you one piece that could be 3 different pieces? They just want to sell you 3 different pieces. So sewing is a great way to just kind of make your clothes work a little bit more for you. Things like cinching in areas like this neckline I talked about, you could have the option to do it like all the way out to here done up, or just one done up. You can make as many matching accessories to an outfit as you want to pile them all on together, or wear them all as separates to become their own staple pieces. Really, As I say with all of these videos, your options with sewing are literally endless. Whatever your style is, you can make it. If you're at the beginning of your sewing journey, especially again if you're very driven by fashion and clothing and like just aesthetics, your whole look can just be completely transformed if you just get down some basics of fitting and start to just let your imagination run wild. So as always with these videos, I hope that this inspired you for some of your upcoming sewing projects. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know and give it a like down below. You can also subscribe if you want to be notified. No, you can turn on my notifications, but you can subscribe if you want to know every time that I post a video, and I will see you back here next time.